Women's rights is not a new issue, is not a new concept for Sikhs. This is something that our gurus have been talking about right from day one. And as I go through some of the examples today, I think you'll be as surprised as I am to see how the gurus implemented what are spiritual values. And that's why we've called this section Spiritual Wisdom in Action. Because this is what makes the Sikh spiritual tradition so beautiful and so unique, that it isn't a concept. It isn't just ideas. It's about how do you make them real for real ordinary people. Now, where does our concept of equality come from? Our idea of equality comes from the understanding that at the very essence of who we all are, we're connected. We're connected, and we are connected by something that's divinely sacred. And there is something sacred in every single one of us, and it's equal. There is absolutely nothing that we can say that we are better than any other person. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is famous for saying, Nanak uttam neech na koi. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of the Sikh spiritual practice, categorically says there is no one who is higher or lower. And so there's this one universal truth that's underpinned the notion of equality in all human beings. Now, we're aware of equality from a social basis. So we talk about equality in the sense that the gurus combined all of the various castes or social classes within India. And he said that every single person could have access to a spiritual and a good quality of spiritual life. And where do we see that? Look at the Amrit Sanchar. I hope some of you are familiar with these terminologies, but I'll try and simplify them for those of you who are not. It's what you may call a baptism. It's not an ideal word for it, but the baptism within the Sikh spiritual tradition sees that there is absolutely no barriers to anyone accessing spirituality. So no one, whether you come from what is considered the working classes, the poor classes, or the extremely high classes. Where else do we see that? We see that in Langar. In Langar, there used to be the concept Pangat before Sangat. Before you came and visited the Guru, the first thing you had to do was show your commitment to equality. You had to sit, whether you were a beggar or whether you were a king, you had to sit on the floor and share the same meal and break bread together. So this is some of the ideas of equality that we're already aware of. But how does it work with gender equality? It starts with a fundamental notion that which is sacred in all of us is gender neutral. Let me repeat that. That which is divinely sacred in every human being, every animal, every plant exists equally and is gender neutral. And what am I trying to say? God is genderless. That's a very important concept. And how do we know this? Everything that we know comes from what we call Gurbani, the Sikh holy scriptures. The scriptures written by the enlightened beings themselves. What does the Guru say? Tu mera pita, tu hai mera mata. O divine being, whatever your understanding of God is, it doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about today. O divine being, you are my mother and you are my father. So at the very basis of our notion of equality comes from the fact that the very thing that combines all of us, this God or whatever you want to call it, is not a male. God is gender neutral. And more interestingly, every single person who's on a spiritual journey must adopt female characteristics. We hear about this concept called the soul bride. What that means is every single one of us has to adopt feminine characteristics in order to be on a spiritual journey. What is a spiritual journey? What are the feminine concepts? Love, equality, kindness. Our specific spiritual path says kindness is the parent of religion. Kindness is the parent of religion. And those are inherently feminine qualities. So in order for you to discriminate against a woman is to go directly against the tenets of what it means to be spiritual. So we are all divine feminine. Gurbani has this beautiful phrase that says, Is jag mein purkh ek hai. There's only one masculine, and it's talking about this divine energy. Let's call that the husband, and every single one of us are the wives of that oneness. So we're all sisters. Gurbani specifically talks about, oh my sisters, let's get together and sing the praises of the divine. But this is some of the concepts. I really want to give you some practical ways in which the gurus demonstrated. Now, remember what we're talking about. We're talking about a culture 500 years ago in India, a highly oppressive society, a highly segregated society where men and women are segregated, lower and higher classes are segregated, old and young are segregated. So what does the guru do with these spiritual concepts? How does he get it into the everyday psyche of the normal human being? I want to go through some examples. Have you ever heard of this concept called the sati? Let me explain that to you. It is such a mind-blowing idea. When a husband dies, the woman, the wife, is expected to immolate. Is this idea that you have to burn yourself. So the husband is being cremated on the funeral pyre. Women were jumping in alive to burn themselves because they're of no value anymore, because their husband's dead. Our guru said, that's enough. Let's stop that. The sati tradition of the widow burning, the guru specifically said, no, not only are you of value, not only do you need to not kill yourself, it's okay to remarry. It's not a big deal. Go and live your life. Share your wisdom, share your energy. So the word sati meant a good wife, a pure wife. And a good wife is expected to kill herself when her husband dies, and in the most inhumane way, to burn herself alive while her husband's burning. And we see these paintings and things that you can go back and you can see that these things were real. These things actually happened. The Guru said, Guru Amar Das Ji, our third Guru, was instrumental in bringing together women's rights. He actually talks about this in Gurbani. So he talks about the sati, the burning tradition. He says, Satya e na akhiyan jo mariyan lag chalane. So Guruji is saying that person is not known to be a good wife, a pure wife who burns herself on the funeral pyre. Nanak satye janiye hai, je birhe chot maranne. Nanak, we can all be pure feminine brides when we die in separation from the divine. So when we feel that we've become separate from the divine, when we've understood that we've lost our connection with that oneness, that should kill us inside. And when that kills you inside, that's a true sati. Isn't that phenomenal? This idea that no, you're not unequal because you're a woman. No, you're not lower or higher. No, your value is not, you're not devalued just because your husband dies. Your value is intrinsic to your purity. It's nothing to do with your husband or your wife or your children. So, when was this written? Guru Amar Das Ji was around and a guru during the mid-1500s. So we're talking about from 1552 to 1574. Now, that's nice to have a concept like that, but did it actually work? Did it actually change anything? Well, the Guru was talking about this. The Sikhs were following these practices right from that time. But when the British first arrived in India, they noticed these traditions going on. And this practice was initially tolerated by the British aristocracy. There is a historian called Salahuddin Ahmed. He says that the British elites, the politicians and the ruling classes, he says not only did they seem to accord an official sanction, but it also increased prestige value. You know what they were doing? During a ceremony, when the women were burning themselves, British officials were turning up to the event because it was quite a nice spectacle to watch. They were watching. They were giving it, and this is what this historian is saying, this gave it credence, this gave it some sort of importance, saying, yep, look at all these British officials that have turned up and they're watching it as well. So we're talking about 1800s. In India, this is still going on. Something the Sikh gurus have said, don't do this anymore, it's still going on by the ruling classes. You won't believe when India finally banned this. 1987. Guru Amar Das Ji in the 1500s is saying we shouldn't do this. This is not how society should be run. In 1987, the Sati Prevention Act is passed as legislation and starts with the government of Rajasthan, and it becomes a parliamentary act in 1988. And the act says, finally, that it is illegal to perform this, to encourage this, or to force women into doing this. 1988. Let that just settle in for a moment. This is just the first of a few that I want to go through today. So what else did the Guru ban? The Guru Amar Das Ji, the same third Guru who we're talking about, he was the first amongst the Sikh tradition to say, if you're coming here and you're being forced to wear a veil, he says, I don't want to meet you. I'm not going to meet you if you've got a veil covering your face. He says, because that means that you're being oppressed. There is a story of Raja of Haripur. A king comes to see the Guru, but his wife, or one of his wives, is wearing a veil, and she also wants to come to see the Guru. Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Guru, says, as long as you're wearing that veil, you're not allowed to come see me, because I will not have someone who is suppressed come into my darbar, come in to see me. Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Guru, set up preaching schools all around India, what we call masands. He set up 146 preachers. Back then, mid-1500s, 52 of these Sikh preachers were women. 52 out of 146 Sikh preachers being trained by the Guru to go and spread spiritual knowledge were women. And the Guru directly created this system that said preachers at the highest level can be women. Kudimar. You know this idea, female infanticide? When as soon as a baby girl is born, it's still happening in India today. When a baby girl is born, they say this woman, this girl is going to be a burden on my life. Why is she going to be a burden on my life? We're going to talk about that in the next point. So even today, there is this idea that as long as you have a woman, a girl being born into your house, we can kill this baby. Female babies are still being killed today. The killing of newborn babies is specifically prohibited by Guru Gobind Singh Ji and by Sikh Ret Maryadas. The Ret Maryada is the code of conduct. We have by Daya Singh Ji, one of the Panch Pyare. He's written the Sikh code of conduct, and he specifically says anyone who is engaging in Kudimar, in killing of their babies, he says do not associate with them. By Prahlad Singh, by Desa Singh. And even today in the modern Sikh Ret Nama, it says the Sikh will not kill daughters, nor shall give their daughter in marriage into a family where this act is committed. Gender equality isn't a new concept in Sikhi. We've been talking about this for hundreds of years and we've been practicing it. We don't just have an ideal, we're actually saying you are banned from doing this. If you want to call yourself a spiritual Sikh, you are banned from doing this. You're banned from associating with them. You're not even allowed to marry your children into a family that does this. Why is the woman seen as a burden? Because of another Indian tradition called the dowry system. The dowry system is a system whereby women, brides, are expected to pay the groom's family. If I have a daughter and I want my daughter to marry another young man, I have to pay that young man's family to take the burden of my daughter off my hands. That's the dowry system. The Guru specifically says that the dowry system is something that is against spiritual values. The Guru Ram Das Ji specifically, the fourth Guru says, any other dowry which unconscious people show is only for false ego. It's worthless. He says, Har Prab Mere Babala, Har Devo Dan Main Dajo. Guru saying, if you want to give away a prize, if you want to get some real value in your life, don't get it from your bride's family. Ask for Naam, ask for meditation. That's the real prize in life. And when did dowry become an issue in India? In 1961. There's something called the Dowry Prohibition Act. And you know what? Till today, dowry is being enforced in India, and the police aren't enforcing this law. There's an act in India that says it's against the law to ask for dowry or to give a dowry. 1960 Dowry Prevention Act. But is it enforced? No, because culturally we've not been able to move past it. The final point that is still being discussed in many societies today, the Guru says the female menstruation cycle is not filthy. It is not dirty. And Guruji specifically talks about that just by bathing your body on the outside doesn't make you clean. And again, female menstruation is talked about in our holy scriptures, something that even today we can't talk about in society. Jo joru sir navani ave varovar. As a woman has her periods month after month, so does falsehood dwell in our mind. Guruji is saying, just as you think the woman is dirty because she's having this period once a month, how often is filthy thoughts coming into your mind? That's the dirt that we need to talk about. How often is falsehood, corruption, ego, lies coming into your mind? That's the falsehood that keeps repeating in your mind. You've got your own dirty things going on in your mind. Suche e na akhiye, bain jo pinda toy. Don't call someone pure just because they wash their body. Suche sei nanika, jine man vasya soy. Purity, this comes in Asadivar that we listen to the morning prayers in the morning. Purity comes who has the divine essence within their mind. That is real purity. Not that just you disallow a woman for once a month to say you can't have... I suspect women were probably asked not to leave their houses, to just stay in your home during your dirty periods. Imagine this. And how do we see that in today? In 2016, UK MPs backed a plan to abolish the thing called a tampon tax. But still, 5% is being charged because EU limitations don't allow us to abolish tax on the tampons. This is 2016. In 2018, this year, we've seen the first Bollywood movie tackle the issue of female menstruation in a movie that's just come out called Padman. But you know what? In India, that was tolerated. Pakistan banned the movie because it said that we cannot be discussing issues that are against our own values. So there are countries that are banning movies that talk about female natural cycles. And the Guru was talking about this 500 years ago. So I hope this gives you a little bit of context. I know I've rambled on a little bit. I hope this gives you a little bit of context as to why it's imperative that we as Sikhs are standing up for these values. It's Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.